All of you this morning, and greetings from Bright Morning Star Baptist Church at 292 Glenwood Avenue, where our pastor is Reverend Paul Morris. My name is Jean Flood, and I will be filling in for my nephew, Deacon Larry Taylor, this morning. I pray that something will be said that maybe it'll help you along your way. I know in preparing the lesson, I was greatly helped, and I just pray this morning that you have a blessed day. I know that this lesson is the last in a series of Romans. It's the last lesson for this quarter, lesson 13 for May 30th, and Paul is more or less making his closing remarks. The title is Ministry to Unbelievers, and the lesson text is from Romans 15:15 to 27. The golden text is, as it is written, to whom Christ was not spoken of, they shall see, and they that have not heard shall understand. Now, like I said, Paul was making closing remarks. He's getting ready to close this letter to the Romans. And he was hoping to go to Rome to visit the Romans. He dearly loved them and he wanted to see them. But unfortunately, he did not make it, not the way that he thought he would. He's reminded the Roman believers that others besides the Jews were always a part of God's plan. Once the first verse, or Romans 15:15 says, nevertheless, brethren, I have written the more boldly unto you in some sort, as putting you in mind, because of the grace that is given to me of God. Paul was bold in bringing this up because, like I said, he had never really been to Rome. And although he was a gospel preacher for the Gentiles, he did not want to criticize them or to belittle them. In fact, in the verse before 15, he praised them. He knew they were good people and that they were teaching others, and they were well established. But he just wanted to, well, more or less to touch bases with them. And he said, because of the grace that's given to me, he was a minister through God's grace, and he wanted them to know that. Everything that Paul did, he gave God the glory. He didn't want to boast. He didn't want to be proud about what he was doing, but he wanted to touch bases with them because he loved them. And he wanted to let them know that he was thinking about them. The 16th verse says that I should be the minister of Jesus Christ to the Gentiles, ministering the gospel of God, that the offering up of the Gentiles might be acceptable, being sanctified by the Holy Ghost. Paul, like I said, had never been to Rome, and he just wanted to let them know. He gave him, I guess, his credentials. He wanted to let them know that he was a gospel minister through the power of God, and that his spiritual gifts came to him because of the grace of God. He had a special ministry to the Gentiles, which means nations other than the Jews. And he saw himself, because of his Jewish faith, he saw himself as a priest in the conversion of the Gentiles. And he wanted them to be offered to God because I know in many of the Old Testament writings, it said that people offered sacrifice to God, as a sweet smelling sacrifice. And that's what he wanted to do of the Gentiles. He wanted to offer these converts as a blessing to glorify God. And I was thinking about that, and I said, now, the things that we do for the Lord, and especially in the church, the ministries that we have, the gifts that God has given us, do we really think to glorify God with our gifts? Do we really, no matter what our, I'd say, talent would be, do we really want to glorify God if we sing in the choir, or if we usher at the door, preach, teach, whatever we do? Do we really want to glorify God? Or sometimes, I know even with me here today, you want to do your best, and you want to study the lesson, or maybe come to rehearsal to practice your songs. But you also, really, when it comes down to it, what we're really doing is glorifying God. And Paul wanted to make sure that these people knew this. They were sanctified by the Holy Ghost because of their faith in Jesus Christ. Now, I know that's really like a mouthful, but we don't think like that today. We don't think that in the church today, when a soul comes to Christ, that's to glorify God. This person comes to God in faith. And when he does that, or she does that, you're sanctified by the Holy Ghost, and you're given as an offering to God, and he's pleased. But somewhere along the line, I guess between the time of Paul up to now, we look at things differently. We don't really think of the real meaning behind everything that we do in church. You know, whether it's to sing a song, or usher. Oh, I have to usher today. I'm so tired, I don't feel like going. Oh, I think I'll skip rehearsal this week because I'm getting ready to go on vacation. Or I'm not going to teach Sunday school today. I'll call somebody else to do it because I got to cut my grass or whatever. We've lost the meaning of what we're doing and really who we are. Because we as Christians, if we don't glorify God, if we don't really put our arms around these new souls that are coming to Christ, or maybe younger people, or you don't have to really be a young person to be young in the Lord. You can be young in the Lord at 95. Do we really care about what we're doing and see about people in the church? And not just to take somebody a dinner when they're hungry, or to maybe take them to the doctor, but really, are we seeing about their souls, and especially to those who are sick and afflicted? We really, people are depressed, and really, we really, and I know these are clinical and medical things, but really, we shouldn't have a lot of depressed people in the church. We really shouldn't. We have each other, and we really should try and see about each other, and even ourselves. You know, because of the pandemic, we've been separated from each other and in the house. And because I know personally, you know, people are not coming over to visit like normally, and we have to do a lot of praying, a lot of this should give us the opportunity to read more and to pray more, and really just think about, we've had a whole year to think about. I don't want to say how we messed up, but the world has messed up, and as a result, the world might not want to hear this, but as a result of some of the things that have gone on, we're really suffering the consequences, I believe, of what this world is all about. And it's not all about what it should be all about. In The 17th verse, Paul says, I have therefore whereof I may glory through Jesus Christ in those things which pertain to God. And like I just said, he was enthusiastic about, he didn't found the church in Rome. He didn't have anything to do with really um, um, anything that they did or the leaders that were chosen. He didn't have anything to do with that, but he was enthusiastic for them. Sometimes we don't get enthused about something unless we really have a part in it. If we don't have a part in it, even sometimes in the church, then we're not really interested. But Paul was just enthused about anything that pertained to God. Paul was enthused about, and he was saying that after all Christ had done through me, I'm really, not that he was taking the glory from Christ, but he says, I'm really enthused about all the things that have happened because of what God has done through me. And in 18, he says, for I will not dare to speak of any of those things which Christ hath not wrought by me to make the Gentiles obedient by word and deed. He didn't dare boast of anything else. But he didn't boast about what he did, but he boasted about what God had done through him. The Gentiles were obedient by the word of God, not because of what he did. I know a lot of times those of us in the church, we have friends and loved ones, co-workers that we talked to, we talked a little bit about church and this good time we're having. And sometimes we'll invite people to church, and it doesn't always go over well, but we have to leave that to the Lord. Anything that we try to do for people pertaining to Christ, the growth we have to leave to the Lord. Any results we have to leave to the Lord. I remember a few years ago when I guess when ministers were respected and Christians were respected and the church was something special. I had this job, and this particular day, I was down in the lunchroom, and it had like the vending machines. There was no one down there but me. I went down there to get something to eat. They had all the vending machines, and one of my coworkers came in, and we were talking about the previous week and how was your weekend. And, I said, well, I had a wonderful time, at church. I can't remember, it was an afternoon program or whatever. It wasn't that I had invited her to church or anything. We didn't, nothing like that. I just was telling her what a wonderful time we had in church. And she says, oh, she scared me. She says, church, God, I don't want to hear any of that stuff. And I was so shocked. I mean, I stood there. I didn't know what to do or say because she really frightened me. It was almost like I had poured hot water on her. And like I said, I didn't invite her to church or anything. I didn't, I just was telling her what a nice week I had. And, she jumped back and I don't want to hear it. And she stormed out of the place. And I stood there and I said, oh no. I said, I said, there goes my job, because she's going to say I was harassing her or whatever. And I just stood there. I was in shock. I just stood there and I said a little prayer before I went back up to my desk. And I just left it like that. Well, I knew I was going to see her. So I asked the Lord, I said, Lord, you have to help me to handle this. I mean, I don't know, I don't know what to do or say, but she would, peer out, she'd come by my desk and she'd just walk by and I say, good morning, not a word. She wouldn't even talk. So this went on for a while. And I was determined I wasn't going to see. By then, the Lord had worked with me and zipped my mouth, so that I could react the way a Christian ought to act. And this went on for a little while. And one day, this was a few months later, she stopped by my desk and she said, I want to talk to you. And I said, oh no, she's probably, and I says, oh, what? I can't even remember her name. I said, what is it? And she says, I joined a church. And she says, it's really nice. And she says, I know you go to church too. Do you know, after that, we became friends and we went to lunch and several times. And when I left there, she was still in church. And I never forgot that. See, you never know what, you just don't know. When you're dealing with people, and sometimes you might say the wrong thing, something that, the wrong thing to them about, it could be anything pertaining to God, religion, or anything. And you think, well, I'll never talk to another person again about the Bible and nothing else. That's not the way to think, because you know what? God was working on her. And I'm sure maybe I wasn't the only one. Maybe I was just a little piece in the puzzle to get her on the way. We should always remember that. And a good example, I think, is in dealing with our children and our loved ones. I wash my hands. I'll never talk to them again. We can't feel that way. We cannot feel that way. You keep praying for people. And I didn't mention, I was praying constantly for her, because anybody that is that frightened of God or feels that way about anything that pertains to God, I'm afraid for them. So I constantly pray for her. So, I said all that to say this: don't give up on anybody. If Paul, Paul was beaten, whipped, shipwrecked. Now, on any occasion, I think probably a good percentage of us would have said, forget it. No more of this. We would have gone our merry way, because I know most of us, and I think anybody that's been in the church any kind of way, you've lost friends and people have walked away from you. And the minute you open your mouth about church, I don't want to hear that. Or they just walk away. This happens, but we cannot give up. A soul is precious to the Lord, and we're in charge of our little ministry, whatever it is we're supposed to do for Christ. Because when we stand before the Lord and he asks you, well, who did you talk to and what did you do? Well, these people are I didn't want to be bothered. Can't be like that. Can't be like that. We have to, you want to get your rewards in heaven. Like my mother used to say, you don't want to just slide into heaven and just barely make it. You really want to pray for people, and no matter how. In fact, sometimes the worst people. Look at Paul. Paul was a terrible person, and after he claimed, as far as the people were concerned, that he was now I'm a Christian, people were afraid of him. They were running from it. So, and because of the terrible life that he had, he was rounding up Christians and persecuting them. We don't know. We're not to judge who God is going to call. So we just to try to plant the seed and somebody else to come along and water it. Do what we have to do. Time is winding down. Right now, if the Lord let us know personally that we only had, just say, 2 more days before God comes, what would you be doing? You'd be running around trying to grab every person that you could possibly think of and tell them about the Lord. Well, we don't know. It could be 2 days from now. So let's get busy. And then Paul was saying, through mighty signs and wonders by the power of the Spirit of God. There he goes again. He gives everything, he attributes everything to to God's grace. He really does. So that from Jerusalem and round about unto Illyricum, I have fully preached the gospel of Christ. He won them over by the many signs and wonders that he did, the miracles that he performed at that time. And many people came to Christ during that time because of what he was doing. Today, we're not, the Lord is not telling us to go around and try to do miracles to draw people to Christ. But guess what we're supposed to be doing to draw people to Christ? We're supposed to be living it. We're supposed to be living this Bible. When you meet the average person that maybe doesn't go to church, or maybe just, certain days they go to church, believe me, they know something about how a Christian is supposed to act. They know how a Christian is supposed to be. So in order for us to draw people to Christ, we got to live what we're talking about. We got to, we pride ourselves. I go to church every Sunday. I put my money in every Sunday. Well, what are you doing on Friday, Saturday, Tuesday, and Wednesday? You're out there with them. And then when you ask them to visit you in church or to come to church with you, you wonder why they're looking at you like you're crazy. See, that we're drawing people with our lives today. We really, and to be honest, I can think of many people in my life, and especially through the years. It's miraculous when a person has been changed to serve Christ. When you know a person, and you know what they're doing and what they've done, and then the next thing you know, they're in church. That's miraculous. God is performing miracles on us every day. So we have to really keep that in mind. And like I said, it's by the power of the Spirit of God. It's through God's goodness and grace. You didn't just change yourself. You can't change yourself. If we could change ourselves, we wouldn't really need God. You can't do anything for yourself. You can't even wake yourself up in the morning. So we need God. We need God. And see, Paul had preached, it says from Jerusalem to Illyricum, I was reading where it was several hundred miles between the two cities. So he did a lot of preaching, a lot of establishing churches between the two cities. And I think Deacon Taylor mentioned that. Can you imagine no car, no bus, no plane? I mean, they had to walk everywhere. And not only just walk everywhere, these hundreds of miles. What if it rained? What if there was a storm? And what did people do? How did they handle it? And now, on any given day, some of us are sitting home, the car outside, or even if you don't have a car, I even have the Uber app on my phone. You can get to church. Of course, you can call a friend or somebody, but I don't feel like it today. And then it's like 2 or 3 minutes in the car. It's just. Yeah, I think it would do us all good to look at some of the life of these apostles, and even with Jesus, what they had to go through, thinking of us. And Jesus was thinking about you. He was thinking about me. He was thinking about all that he went through. And then to wind up, because Paul's end wasn't good, to wind up like they did, outcast, beaten, beheaded, killed, but yet they fully preached the gospel. Now in 20, it says, "Yea, so have I strived to preach the gospel, not where Christ was named, lest I should build upon another man's foundation. And what Paul is saying there, he wanted to preach Christ where it was never, where Christianity was never heard of. He wanted to go to new places. He didn't want to go to a church that somebody else had founded. He wanted to go to places where they had never heard about the preaching of the cross. And when I read this and I read some of the remarks that I made, I said, "Oh no, I don't know how I'm gonna do this," because one of the things that it brought about was that Paul had said this because there were problems in the various churches with the various leaders. In 1 Corinthians 1:10-13, Paul was talking about the divisions between the leaders and the people and the fighting, and he remarked on that because it was really, they were comparing preachers, Paul and Apollos, and they were just making a mess of things. They were tearing the church up with, I want to say, I guess I'm old enough to say, with nonsense. And see, I guess that was, and in fact, I know it was in Paul's mind that he didn't want this to happen. He didn't have that much time to be to going from church to church and fighting with the people already there. Well, my pastor never did it this way. He didn't have time for all that. So he went to the places where it was that were unchurched. And it says, they said, it's difficult when a new pastor comes into a church, and it says when the former pastor is much beloved and the people love him, and then comes a new pastor. Well, I have to say that I lived through it both ways. When my husband was pastor, he was the new pastor. And then when he passed on, there was a new pastor to come in to replace him. So I've had it both ways. And I do know that we do not have time for any fighting, squabbling, divisions, because first of all, time is winding down. We've already been out of church, how long now? Over a year. I'm talking about right now, today. We've been out of church over a year. Now, how much more does God have to let us see that time is winding down? And it's enough for all this foolishness. We have to get together and pray together for the glory of God. We forget the glory of God. And when we're fighting and squabbling, God gets no glory. And for the benefit and the edification of the church. And I think after a while, we forget about the church. And I know it's difficult because, like I said, I've lived through both ways, and it's hard either way. It's hard for the new pastor to come in, and I know as a member, it's very hard. It's very hard, but we have to come together in prayer. And and I'm not saying we have to come down here and have meetings, because sometimes that can turn out to be not so good either. We have to petition God, each and every one of us personally, and then we'll be able to, to come together, because each pastor and each church is not there because the bishop or somebody placed him there, or because the people voted for him, or because he just happened to be there. He's there because God said so. And nobody thinks of that. Nobody thinks that, well, he's there because God placed him there, so we're going to try to do. And then if anything goes wrong, or whatever the case may be, the Lord will take care. This is his church. This is his church. Your church is, every Christian church, Africa, Australia, England, the United States, it belongs to God. It belongs to God, and he's overseeing each and every church, each and every situation. God knows. And we have to have wisdom enough to be able to handle any situation. Any situation that goes on, and you pray for your pastor, you pray for each other. We have to be prayerful. And it's hard. And like I said, when you get a little bit older, change is difficult. Change is very, very difficult. And we, like I said, especially as Christians, if you live to be of any age, you're going to have many stages and changes in your life. I know when I lost my husband, I said, "This is what am I going to do?" You know, I mean, and it happened pretty suddenly. And why did God leave me here? I mean, God has it all under control. He's with the Lord out of all this stuff that we're going through. I mean, out of the pandemic. And I think now with him not being able to come to church, and I don't think that would have been too good. In fact, I know this. God knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. So we have to, like I said, we have to come together and pray for each other. And just think now in 70 years, every church, every Christian church in this world is going to have a new pastor. Sooner or later, you're going to have a new pastor. So we have to remember these things. And like I said, just be prayerful that everything is gonna work out. And remember who the church belongs to. You know, the church, we're the bride of Christ. You know, the church is well looked over, and we can't forget that. And Lord knows, I don't want to be the cause of any, and especially, and guess what? What is the title of this ministry to unbelievers? Don't you know the unbelievers are looking at us? The unbelievers are looking at us. We're trying to get people to church. And you know what they're saying? You must be kidding. So we have to remember, read our Bible. See, we get into if you get your Bible and read it and find out some of the things that happen then, and the same things are happening now. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. And then just think, because of the pandemic, most of us who came back into our church, we had to almost start over again. Things are different. We can't do this. We can't do the same thing now that we did a year and a half ago. Things are different, and there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, we have to do things now in the church that people didn't have to do a year and a half ago. Fewer people, the sanitizing and cleaning and all the things that who wants to do that? We just want to come in here and have a good time, but we can't. So change is always with us, and we have to learn how to deal with it and give God the glory. I mean, everybody's claiming that, well, we back on the right road, and everybody, the bars are packed, and the entertainment, baseball, and everybody's just like nothing ever happened. Well, guess what? This is only the beginning. Now, I don't know if any of us or I'll live to see it, but this is the beginning of the end. And we might as well come together in prayer, come together for God and the glory of the church. Now, in 21, Paul is saying, but as it is written, to whom he was not spoken of, they shall see. And they that have not heard shall understand. And this is taken from Isaiah. Even the prophet Isaiah said, let us know that God's plan includes reaching all people All people of every nationality is precious in God's sight. And I wrote down here, even sometimes scary people, because I know Paul, before he was converted, he was a scary person. There's no one who's excluded from the love of God. And as Christians, I know sometimes there's people that we don't want to be bothered with. And then too, there's people that in fact, there's a lot of people that don't want to be bothered with you, let alone unsaved people. So we have to learn that everybody's precious in God's sight. You know, it could be a wayward friend, a wayward child, a wayward husband or wife, whoever it might be. Whoever it might be. As long as a person has breath, they can be changed by God's grace, his goodness, and by his Holy Spirit. A person can be changed. The thief on the cross. Now, his mother was looking at him, looking down on him, and maybe looking up at him, and his friends or people were probably talking about the poor man like a dog. And here, Jesus said, this day you'll be with me in paradise. It's never too late. And sometimes we have to get to the point where maybe all we can do is pray for a person. Always keep people in your prayers. Keep this world in your prayers. Our government, I don't care who they are, Democrats, Republicans, I don't care who they are. Keep everybody in prayer, because it's never too late for anybody to change. And like I said, the prophet Isaiah wrote that many years before Paul even came along. Now in 22, it says, for which cause also I have been much hindered from coming to you. He was delayed. He wanted to come to Rome, but he was delayed on many, many occasions. Like I said, he was shipwrecked, and people were running him out of town and beating him. He had a rough life, but God ordained his steps. And I know sometimes in your life, maybe, sometimes you plan to do something or plan to go somewhere, and it just doesn't happen. It might not happen at that time. Sometimes you might want to, even something like you want a home or a car or a new job. It might be years before you get that. It could be 2 weeks or it could be 2 years. We have to be patient, and we have to know that God is in full control. It's easier and better that you just give your life over to God and say, Lord, thy will be done, instead of fighting everybody to get what you want. And I'm going to get to the top of the ladder, and I'm going to make this promotion, and nobody's going to stop me. No. It might not be the right time. We don't know. God knows. And sometimes when we're old enough, we can look back and see why God didn't do certain things in our lives at the time we thought that he should do them. We have to leave our lives and everything that we own and possess. We have to leave our children, everything, in God's hands. It says, but now in 23, having no more place in these parts, and having a great desire these many years to come to you. Now he was saying that he was, I guess he was winding down and finishing up, and he was about ready. Maybe he could come to them. He'd be able to come to them at this time. And he was eager to visit. He really wanted. Paul had many friends in Rome and many other places. He made a lot of friends. He knew a lot of people. And he was really anxious to get to Rome, because Rome was then one of the larger cities, and the church was well established, and he really wanted to get there to be with them. It says, but he says, whensoever I take my journey into Spain, I will come to you, for I trust to see you in my journey, and to be brought on my way thitherward by you, if first I be somewhat filled with your company. The next major body of land to the west of Rome was Spain. And this is where Paul wanted to go. He wanted to stop in Spain and then go to Rome, but he wanted to collect what he was doing. He wanted to collect offerings from some of the Gentile churches where the people had been converted, and take to some of the poor churches where really they needed help. And he wanted to take something to Spain, and also he wanted to take offerings to the poor in Jerusalem. This is in 25, Romans 15:25. He wanted to take offerings to the poor in Jerusalem. He was a great missionary preacher. He was more than just a gospel preacher to the Gentiles. I used to wonder, when I was much younger, before I knew anything really, still don't know anything about the Bible, but before I really knew anything, they said Paul was a missionary. I said, a missionary preacher. And now I see why. He was collecting offerings and taking these offerings to the churches that needed them. Anywhere there was a need, he was trying to help. So he was doing more than just preaching and boasting about what he was doing and collecting money for himself. Well, it said his trade was a tent maker. I don't know if he was making tents or whatever, but he was certainly thinking about other people. I don't even want to get into now. If you probably get some minister famous like Paul to come to your church, oh my goodness, he'd be bringing you money, all right. But anyway, like I said, times have changed, and things have changed, and God knows, because I know a lot of our churches now that are established, we can afford to do little things that these people couldn't do. These people had virtually nothing. They were very poor. And then you have to think back in those days, and especially the women, they didn't have jobs and the money and the things that we have today, the things that we're blessed with today. And even in some of the other countries, right now, today, they don't have what we have in this country. They really don't. We're blessed. We're blessed beyond measure. Blessed beyond measure. But like I said, it's really strange. But there in Jerusalem, because I was thinking last night, I said, now, he was going to Jerusalem to take the saints an offering that he had collected from because the Gentile nations, they were appreciative of the Jews giving them the gospel. So they were more than happy to give offerings. But here in Jerusalem, he was falsely accused. This is where all the, I don't really want to put it this way, but the big time preachers and there, because it was well established work. And here he was falsely accused, arrested, and then sent to Rome. That's how he wound up in Rome. He wound up in Rome, all right, but not the way he wanted to. And it said he was able to do all he wanted to do, and for God. Because to be honest, I think most of us would, if we were planning to go to the Bahamas, we certainly wouldn't be fooling around with some of the stuff Paul was doing and say we'll go later. We would go straight to the Bahamas and then do what we had to do. But he was directed by God. Everything he did pertained to God. He wanted to please God. He wanted to help the churches. His desires seemed to come last. And then finally, when he was able to maybe think about going to Rome, he's arrested. Now, it said that when he went to Macedonia and Achaia, were two major provinces of the Grecian peninsula. And many of the churches planted in this area by Paul and because he had co-workers now. It wasn't just Paul. There were many people with him, beloved people, because the last chapter 16, it names all the people that he greeted and all the people that he knew. Paul and his co-workers they just wanted to do good to all men. They were especially of them of the household of faith. And Paul wrote in Galatians 6:10 that we should do all good to all men, especially unto them who are the household of faith. Like I said, Gentile believers had benefited from Jewish Christians' spiritual blessings, and it was right that they should share those blessings. It's kind of mind-boggling. Like I said, we have so much today, and we're not quite as generous. We don't really think about anything but ourselves. Because I know a pastor told me, and I know time is winding down, one time about this church that needed something. And he met with them. He was years ago when he was a young minister. And he wanted to help the church. He wanted to oh no, they can call the national or whatever and get some help. He says, but we can help them right now. They didn't. That broke his heart because he was young in the ministry. It broke his heart. See, we don't think like Paul did today. I think since the pandemic, we're thinking more and more like Paul, of helping each other. See, God had to put us in a situation where we had to help each other. And I hope this has kind of taught us a lesson, but I don't think so. Like I said, people are back to doing what they were doing before this thing even hit. So as Christians in our churches, do the best we can. Stay together in your churches. Support your pastor. Support each other. Just for the cause of Christ. For the cause of Christ, because this thing is winding down. And really, the only thing we have is Christ. People don't know it. The world doesn't know it. But we know it. We should know it. The only thing you have going for you is what God can do for you, what God can give you. He's already done the ultimate thing for you by dying for you so that you could have a right to the tree of life and think eternally. All this stuff down here pretty soon it's going to fade away. It's going to fade away, and we're going to be, just think you're going to have that resurrected body that doesn't get sick and doesn't get tired, and no fighting and no confusion. The gates of the city are not going to be closed because there'll be no fear. Just think of what we have to look forward to. And that's coming sooner than we think. So let's tell everybody we know so that they can come too. No matter how, you don't want to wish your worst enemy to hell. I know you don't. So like I said, we can see that time is winding down. And I just say this, before I close. Paul was so grateful to God, and a gifted preacher, a gifted missionary, never boastful. He gave God all the glory for everything he ever did. And I have to stand here and tell you too that I give God the glory for everything that's happened to me and where he's brought me. If you had told me a week after my husband had passed that I would even be doing this, I said, you got to be out of your mind. Didn't know where I was, didn't know nothing. Didn't know how I was going to live, what I was going to do. But thanks be to God, my church, my son, my granddaughter, my sister, all the people that have helped, people in this church who've, prayed for me and done for me, and the pastor of this church now, things that he's done to help me. I thank God for that. I thank God for that. And anybody who doesn't know the Lord, you're just out there on your own. You're out there on your own. And God has just blessed me beyond measure. He has blessed me beyond measure. I had food to eat and heat. I told my son, I said, I just need some food and some heat and light. And I got much more than that. Much more than that. And I thank God for it. And like I said, I thank God for my church home so much, for what they, for everything that you've done for me and for my husband. He was just, he loved this church. He loved all of you. And when the last time he was here, he said, y'all better be good to each other now. He said, you better be good to each other, be kind to each other. No pastor wants to pastor for years and then leave here and look down from heaven and church all torn up. Who wants that? You want the best for your children. He was a father. We're the children. He wants the best for he wanted the best for the children, and you want the best for your children. So, and then when Pastor Morris, he wants the best for us. This is what God puts into a gospel preacher: a love for the people, a love for the church. Nobody wants to see everything all torn up. So we have to come together in love. And and Paul was all about the love, all about the love. We have to love each other and love the Lord and give God the glory for everything that you do. So you know what that means? We're not going to be doing too many bad things, are we? Not a whole lot of bad things. And we've all had months and months to think about that. So for us to come out of this pandemic and act crazy, it's on you. It's really on you. So I pray that, like I said, all is well with the vaccination is not going to help you. The next, who knows? And there is going to be a next time. We got away this time, but God is He's looking down on us, and He said, "Well, have y'all learned anything? Have we learned anything?" I hope so. I really hope and pray that churches all over I pray for churches all over the world. I pray for Israel, for Africa, for China. I pray for there are Christians everywhere. There are God's people are everywhere, all over this planet, and we should pray for each and every one of them. And some of them are our enemies. Pray for your enemies as well as your friends. So I pray that something has been said maybe to help somebody, and all of you just have please have a safe weekend. Have a blessed and safe. I don't know if I want to turn on the news, but have a blessed and a safe weekend, please. So.